James Comey under investigation for running allegedly an off-books honeypot scheme. A honeypot scheme against Trump, trying to infiltrate Trump's campaign. That is a news story that came out of the Washington Times. But it may have another layer, according to an interview I did with somebody who was targeted by these honeypots. George Papadopoulos, more on that in a second. But remember, Comey had no use for Donald Trump. He was hoping he could get him into a double wide in some prison somewhere.
Just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population. But it's obviously doable.
Well, here's some new information. Not only is Kash Patel investigating Comey for these alleged honeypot schemes, George Papadopoulos gave me some information that suggests it was not just Trump's campaign that they were interested in, but multiple campaigns. Because according to the latest and greatest, they now have a 2015 effort of honeypot action that actually targeted George. And so he said he was targeted by 3. I'm like, George, I know you were a young kid at the time and everything, but okay, we've got to wake up and be a little bit more. Note to self, what do I tell my son? Be very, very careful of the woman who's overly interested in you, right? Okay. All that aside, he's happily married now to a beautiful woman, an absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman. You're going to hear from her in a second. She's funny. She's like, I knew exactly who the honeypots were. Yeah. Anyway, go back to 2016. Go back to 2015. In 2015, they were on to George. George is like, I don't know why. I mean, I had kind of an international background. I think he had done a master's overseas in London. And he had had some experience within the energy world. He's like, for some reason, they picked me out of a hat. And they targeted Comey, he believes, targeted him specifically. Well, back then, he was on the Ben Carson campaign. But they felt that it was an entry point in, George believes, into the Ben Carson campaign, because Carson was doing really well at one point. And then when he moved over to the Trump campaign, they targeted him again. Well, and then they targeted him again. So like 3 grand total targets. You were on another campaign first. Was it Ben Carson? So when this was going down, when they were first targeting you, were they targeting you on the Trump campaign or on Carson's?
Yeah, so it looks like it was Dr. Ben Carson's campaign, because that's who I was working for in 2015. I wasn't working for Donald Trump's campaign until March of 2016. So there was also a different report that came out that the CIA with foreign governments was actually targeting 26 Trump associates, and Dr. Ben Carson was one of those associates. I was one of them. So what it looks like was going on here, Trish, was that there was a full on-scale targeting of rivals to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's potential third term, which obviously would have been reflected in Hillary Clinton's potential victory.
If I'm following you correctly, they were out there trying to infiltrate other campaigns, not just the Trump campaign. They didn't know who was going to be the Republican nominee. They wanted to make sure that they had information on all the potential Republican nominees.
Yeah, so when I was on Ben Carson's campaign, he was actually the only candidate that actually led in the polls at one point during the campaign season. People thought it was candidate Trump. Actually, Ben Carson had 10 to 12% of the electorate. He was extremely popular among evangelical Christians, which was a major voting bloc, and it still is, obviously, in the United States. And I believe it was that support and that endorsement of Trump that really torpedoed Ted Cruz's campaign. So when you have people with that type of support, Ted Cruz, other people who are very popular, it's no surprise that the FBI, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, with the Obama administration, was going to spread their tentacles into various campaigns, see who some of the people were in these campaigns, target them, spy on them, get information.
I mean, they're using government assets to do it. It's wild. It's absolutely, this is like stuff in the movies, right? Like stuff that you don't really believe our U.S. government would do, but we've learned a lot of things, shall we say, in the last however many years. Yeah. Hmm. Apparently they really like the honeypot thing. I mean, if we're to believe that Jeffrey Epstein was an intel asset. Anyway, his wife, Simona Mangiante, she thinks she knows who they are, and she kind of goes through it. And this is interesting. So she thinks she knows not only who these three women were. According to the Washington Times, one worked for the CIA. Forgive me, both of them worked for the FBI. So they were both under Comey's domain. Apparently, he ran the whole op himself. That's also according to the Washington Times. And they both worked for the FBI. One of them got promoted to CIA. But George is saying, like, he thinks there was a third there, and that she was somehow also an employee of the FBI, but she was originally from Turkey. Let's let Simona and George tell us.
There were all these characters.
Do you know who they were? Do you think you know who they were?
Just in knowing how they look like, because of course I'm a woman, so I'll just like I have retroactive jealousy. So,
so you think you know because you know which ones the way they looked. I mean, I'm not trying to give it. You know, we're not trying to disclose anybody's identities. I'm just curious. It sounds like there's one that has been reported, but there may have been some. I guess all working for the U.S., but from different nationalities.
Well, one is, I think it's a Turkish national, as they call her, a battle blonde with, her style was very revealing, let's say. So there was, it's not like
George. Okay.
So, so keep an eye on him. And I was guessing how the FBI profiled what he likes. So it's important for me to know, right?
Right. Useful information, right? What does the FBI think that my now husband is going to be into?
Exactly. That's right.
But there were two more.
And we have this, I think, an Israeli national as well, and an American one. That's what I think. And I believe I might have crossed the American one at some point, because we used to work for the same law firm in London called the London Center of International Law Practice. And this place was a very shady place where we both, I think, been there for only a few months until we both realized in different times that, it was not really clear what they were doing over there. So I remember all this young professional coming at the table from different governments background, like myself, I was working for the European Union. So, and I remember I might have crossed there once, but before I even met him. So at least I know one of them, I think.
Wow. I mean, you guys got to write a movie. I mean, I know you have the documentary, but unbelievable, right? I mean, just crazy stuff. But listen, like this was their MO. And so poor George, he told the story about how, his candidate had just gotten elected. He's all excited. And they approached him outside his house. The FBI did, a couple of agents. And they said, hey, can you come with us to FBI headquarters? And he didn't think anything of it. Like anything of it, because they wanted to investigate Russian interference or something in the election. And he was sort of like, well, yeah, I'll tell them whatever I know. I mean, wouldn't you? So that's another lesson learned. If the FBI shows up at your house, you get yourself a lawyer fast. Mike Flynn didn't know to do this either. General Flynn got caught in a bad situation because James Comey deliberately sent people over there to him. And, it seems kind of unethical. To me, anyway. He knew that this in a normal administration wouldn't have worked. It was just that he felt like everybody was so green in the Trump administration, and so they didn't know to lawyer up. And this is how it went down. You may have to turn the volume up a little bit, but listen to him kind of laughing and smirking about how he went after General Mike Flynn by sending agents over, and Flynn didn't bother to get a lawyer or anything, and then found himself in a big pot of trouble.
It's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. The protocol, two men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
Yeah. So, that's how he rolls. Well, now he's under investigation himself. Kash Patel looking into all of this. And of course, it's what Comey feared, because he figured that Trump might be a little bit retaliatory. But, given what Trump has been through, you can kind of get it and understand it, right? You want a clean shop for either side. You can't be dealing with Obama's team that had been there for 8 years and had been hoping that they were going to get another 4 years through Hillary Clinton. By the way, you want to talk about some fishy stuff, just look at CGI and the fact that Bill Clinton was running that and collecting hundreds of millions of dollars from all these weird places all over the world in developing market, emerging market countries. And a lot of that money never made it to the people. I was talking with the guy who investigated the Haiti situation, and he said only 10% of that money made it. And by the way, they never really registered as a charity. I don't know how you could be Secretary of State and have your husband be out there collecting ka-ching, 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 all this money, hundreds of millions of dollars from all over the world. I mean, they really made Hunter Biden look like small potatoes, let's be honest. But this was the honeypot scandal. So basically, according to this protected whistleblower disclosure, one of the whistleblowers came forward. There was a female agent involved in the attempt to have undercover agents target the Trump team. And according to the Washington Times, it was all run directly by Comey, and it was all off the books. And so Comey knew that they would be looking into this. This may be why he was so adamant that the public could not elect Trump, and yet they did it anyway. So now I'm kind of wondering, what happens with Diddy? Right? If we're seeing that, stuff is getting destroyed, then what happens with P. Diddy? Are we going to learn anything there? Quick reminder before I go to it. Do not forget, it's the weekend, okay? It's the weekend. So go to 76 Research. Use my code word $. Just $1 a month. If you don't like it, we'll give you the $1 back. Seriously, we will. Money back guarantee. So seriously, no harm, no foul. And you get a whole weekend to start looking at this and start planning your financial future. I love that Mike Nelson loves my research. You know why? Because the research, hopefully, if we're doing our jobs right, will make you money. That's the idea. So 76research.com. Use code word $1 today.